Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Bite Size Podcast. I'm your host Clayton at Clates AFC on Twitter. Happy transfer deadline day. It is transfer deadline day. So even though we're here to do a Brighton match preview, as we always do every Friday, I'm joined by my co-host for that, FPL Nima. How you doing?
Yeah, good to see you, Clayton. Busy day. Hopefully we get some more business done by 11 p.m. in the transfer window, and really looking forward to previewing this Brighton game. It's less than 24 hours now till kickoff, so very exciting.
Yeah, and obviously being deadline day, it would be weird to not mention it. So we are going to actually do a whole podcast about the not the transfer window, but whatever our final business is. We're going to review it next week or at some point in the international break. So we'll do a whole podcast on that. But being it is deadline day, have you got any thoughts? Are you hoping to see anyone come in? Ramsdale's been confirmed as an outgoing. So wish him all the best. Looks like we'll get Neto in on loan. So are you expecting anything else?
So I think being realistic, I think we're done for the window. I think we're going to have to stumble through until January somehow to get like another player to add some depth. It does concern me a lot. It feels like there could be like some developments very late in the evening if Chelsea are struggling to, find a way to get rid of Sterling and his wages. Maybe he's someone who can come in, right? I don't know how you feel about that, but it's obviously a long way from the likes of Nico Williams and Sesko and those kind of blockbuster signings we had our eyes on, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly relaxed is the wrong word. Like I'd be disappointed if we didn't get another attacker because that's the one I've been consistent on for a while. But I don't look at the market, and I don't look at any deal that's happened with envy on. Oh, we should have gone and got that player. So like I just think this player that we need is just not attainable, and I think that's where a lot of fans just kind of don't seem to apply any rationale. Like if I saw Nico Williams going with his release clause and his wages suddenly were sub 250k, I'll be like, why didn't we go for it? But it doesn't sound like it's that simple. It doesn't look like he's moving, and his wages seem to be an issue still. So yeah, I think the wide forward for me is what takes us up a level, but it doesn't look like that player exists and is attainable. Sterling, I think for me, it seems very similar to the Trossard signing, and when we signed Trossard, it was more like he's a good first team player, not quite a level raiser, but he can come in and hit the ground running. But for me, I would only want Sterling in one of two scenarios. One, if it is a loan, I would only like him on a loan, or if it's a very short term contract and it's not too much of a financial outlay, because I know people will say, oh, like you're a fan, you shouldn't be an accountant, but like being realistic about it, it does have a knock-on impact on what we can do in the future. And I think Arsenal will be keeping their powder dry to go and get their top targets that may be available in January, or if not next summer. So I'm mixed about it. I love the Calafiori deal. I love the Marino deal, who unfortunately is injured now. Thanks, Gabriel. But who else have we signed? Raya we made permanent, but
Well,
yeah,
we
I feel
need
like
two
we're
goalkeepers, right? So right now, because we've missed the 12 p.m. registration for tomorrow, we won't have a senior goalkeeper on the bench. It will be just
yeah.
Raya. Raya's the only senior goalkeeper, but I think that's fine. Like we're not expected to summon a goalkeeper mid-game, so I think that's fine. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of jokes that we're going to maybe try buy another 6 goalkeepers for the final part of the business we have to conclude. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think overall, I'm very happy with the window. I've seen some people really going off the rocker.
It wouldn't be Arsenal Twitter if they weren't. Like I said,
Yeah,
I've cleansed my timeline, so I don't really see the meltdowns.
so I listened to there was a Twitter Spaces earlier from Sky Sports doing like a transfer deadline day kind of thing, and they brought on one fan from each club just to briefly say how they felt. And actually, Clive went on for like just 2 minutes as a speaker, and he kind of said that, like many other times as an Arsenal going fan, it just feels like we're kind of like one player short. And it does remind me of the later Wenger years where like we were always so close to that final jigsaw and there was that one piece missing. But I agree with you that we shouldn't just go and buy someone because we want that one attacking player. Like if that kind of signing is too short-sighted this window, it rules us out of a proper plan like a Nico Williams or that caliber in the future. So I do agree that I don't think we should just buy someone for the sake of it. But they're saying, oh, why didn't we plan better? Why haven't we been targeting this player? And I don't know, man. I think people forget we scored 91 goals last season, the highest we've ever scored, I believe. And the team hasn't suddenly gone worse. Like, I'm seeing people speculating that it's back to a top 4 battle again this year because we didn't buy one winger. Like I don't know how many
Have you
minutes.
actually seen that? I've not seen anyone saying that.
Yeah, I've seen people giving 0 out of 10 to the transfer window. Hashtag Edu out,
Jesus.
hashtag Arteta out, failures, all this. Like,
You
it's
need
crazy,
to
man.
cleanse your timeline like I have.
Bro, I follow 4,000 people. I don't think I'm ever going to have a cleansed
Take it
timeline
down to
unless I'm
1,000.
But if I'm that kind of guy who tries to please everyone, I can't
See,
unfollow
I'm
someone
not.
who follows
I
me,
don't
and
care
they're
if I
gonna.
fucking hate someone.
But I don't want them to be DMing me like, "Why did you unfollow me?" I find it a bit awkward. You know what I mean?
Fucker, man.
But yeah, I guess you are right to an extent. I'm also in like a couple of other Arsenal group chats, and I think in those places people are much more positive and logical in their thinking. But
No,
just to wrap
be
up the
fair, like,
window.
oh, sorry, go for it.
Sorry, go on. I was going to wrap up my thoughts on the window. So I think overall, even if no one comes in, I do think we've got to that point where we're just one player short. Yes, that's not ideal. There is still January. Me personally, I just want to talk about Sterling very quickly. I would take him in a heartbeat. I don't care. I think it's better than not signing anyone. I think it's crazy the way that people think he's so washed up. He's a 4-time Premier League winner. I was looking at his stats. He has a disgusting number of returns. He's Premier League proven. Like, you know, if
Arteta's
he
worked
was
with him
willing to
before.
come, exactly, like, and he's the kind of guy. Him and Sane both said it was Arteta's coaching that got the best out of them at Man City. We know that he was coaching the attacking players at Man City, and Pep said as much. So, you know, if he can come back, has a point to prove, and wants to play for a manager who believes in him and his qualities, sure, if it's like a 2-year contract with an optional 1 year, he takes a pay cut, we don't pay a transfer fee. I think that's fantastic business for the level of Premier League provenness he has, and just to have that extra depth from him playing across the entire front line. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, obviously, if we pay a big fee for him and pay him big wages, then it's a really shit deal. I get that. But that's the whole thing here. Chelsea have kind of devalued him by doing what they did with Maresca in the public eye, in the quotes, and they're going to get into major issues with him. They need to get rid of him, and they want to get Sancho today, it sounds like, and they need Sterling to leave to make that happen. So I have fingers crossed that by the end of tonight, something could positively happen, maybe even a loan for 1 year, so that they don't have to deal with the repercussions of all the money they owe him in 3 years of wages for the next part of the contract. But overall, I just can't comprehend how someone with 185 goal contributions in the Premier League, right? I've got here 123 goals, 62 assists, 181 career goals, 113 careers. I don't understand how anyone can come to me and say, I'm sorry, this is not a washed up player. I'm sorry. I'm just so Chelsea is a shit show of a club right now. Every player who leaves there does well. I'm not buying this idea that he's bad business and we're panicking. If it's the good wages, I am all for it. So that's my final 2 pence on the transfer window. Like, I want him. I hope we get him. It just needs to be the right deal, and I trust the club not to fuck up.
Fair play. Yeah, I'm in similar agreement to you. I think I only want him if it's the right deal, because I do think long-term squad planning wise we can do better and get something that actually raises the attack to another level. But we shall see. Like I said, we'll over the next 2 weeks we've got an international break, so the two of us and possibly a guest or two will be joining us to review the transfer window. So we'll see how we get on. Should we go and preview the Brighton game? Before we do that, let's shout out some of the guys in the chat. Got Nick Fadley, who's in as always. Hey, mate, hope you're good. Marsh is in. Afternoon, fellas. Hope you're good, mate. Tommy Gunn's in as always. Afternoon, everyone. Pontus is in. Nice to see you again, mate. Cheers, lads. Hello, lads. Tommy Gunn, tragic Merino news. So yeah, if anyone that's not seen it, let me paraphrase this, but basically Gabriel fell on Merino and he's been ruled out for a few weeks following a training ground collision. It's a shoulder injury and a possible fracture. That is disappointing. I'm hoping it's a little international break fib. Keep him at London Colney, adjust to the new way of playing before we go to Tottenham away, a Champions League game, which we're not sure what one it will be yet, in between that and then Man City away. So it is tragic news on face value. And yeah, I guess we just have to assess it as that. FPL Chess League is in. Hey up, chaps. Shocking news about Marino. Nice to see you in the chat, mate. But yeah, agreed. It is. It's not great. Nick Fadley says it's funny. After Marsh said fellas, then Tommy came, just like the movie Goodfellas. Pontus is telling you that you need to cleanse your timeline as well, Nima.
It's a car crash. That's what I was saying to them. It's a full-on car crash.
Pontus has got a comment on Sterling, but we won't talk too much about it if that's right. We'll just go straight into the preview after that. But Pontus's comment was, I don't like Sterling on anything more than a loan. The downside of the possible risk of not being able to sign another attacker next year because of giving him a 2-year deal. So that's Pontus's thoughts on it. But yeah, like I said, we'll be doing a full transfer window podcast during the international break. So if you're new around here and listening, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Brighton, we did very well against them last season. We won, was it 2-0 and 3-0? 2-0 at home, 3-0 away from home.
Lovely clean sheet.
Yeah, I went to the Amex last season, but I missed the home game because I had COVID. But I remember watching it on the telly, and the home game was a clinic. It was absolutely beautiful football in periods, and the away one was just like it was very. Yeah, I think we went 1-0 up with a penalty from Saka, and then it was just like second goal came in the second half, and then third game killed it off with a few to go. It was just very efficient. But how are you feeling going into this one? We obviously, we did well against them last year, but they've got a new manager in Hertzilla, who's the youngest in the league, and I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Brighton. I think they're even though they fucked us up in terms of going for Europe a few years ago, they're a very well run club, and I do quite like them, to be fair. How are you feeling going into this?
Yeah, no, I'm really optimistic. I have high hopes. I think that our attack has gotten even better, and I think that they are not great defensively. So I actually predict us to have the highest odds of goals this week of every team in the Premier League.
Okay, I kind of want to skip to score predictions now, but
yeah,
before we do,
I always gave my prediction, but I don't want to give that.
Yeah,
so just separately to that, I just feel that Brighton, I love the club. Don't get me wrong, I love them. They play beautiful football. Their whole model, everything they do is run properly, right? But I just think we got too much for them. I just think coming from that away victory versus Villa, we're gonna want to, go back to the home crowd, really go for it, and I just don't see how they can keep us out. Like, I honestly think that we'll score the first goal within the first 30 minutes. Okay. And I also predict a clean sheet. But that's
all right. Keep it in your pants. Let's go. Let's go through the starting 11. So the lineup that played against Villa was it was just one change from what started the season. It was Timber that came in for Zinchenko. And for podcast listeners, I've got the graphic on screen, but I'm sure you all know what the team was. It was David Raya in goal. It was the back four of White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, midfield three of Partey, Rice, and Odegaard, and it was Saka, Havertz, Martinelli. Trossard obviously came on from the bench and changed the game last week. He scored and had a key part to play in this, in other moments as well, even though he didn't get the assist for Partey. I think it did come from his cross to Saka, who then played it back. Do you see any changes to the 11 that started last week? Do you think there's any decision at left back? Do you think Timber keeps his place? Well, I've just thrown 15 questions at you there.
No, basically, they're good questions.
Do you think there'll be any changes?
I think Timber will start again at left back because of just dealing with the pace of Brighton. I think it's similar to kind of the Leon Bailey issue we had against Villa, right? So I think Timber will, get another game like that under his belt. I think he'll play those type of opponents, and I think him and Calafiori will share minutes at different percentages based on opponents, and we'll figure out what happens long term to them both in terms of starting 11. Obviously, Tomiyasu is not back training. Jesus is ruled out from the presser, so those are there. The only change I think could happen in the entire 11 was I kind of feel like I don't see how Trossard can't. I just don't see how he can't start. I just don't get it. I just feel like if he doesn't start, what kind of message does that give in terms of he's done everything he possibly can to get that start? So I think throughout the season, especially if we don't get that winger today, we will just see kind of dips in form between Trossard and Martinelli, and they'll kind of take turns starting based on who looks to be the best at that time. Right now, that looks to be Trossard. It does not mean Martinelli won't win back the place at some point. I just think right now it's Trossard's spot, and I love Martinelli. I really want him to start, but I just don't know. How can you keep the only question, right, is does Arteta just think that Trossard is such a good impact sub that he's almost caused himself this problem where he's so good off the bench that he wants that in his back pocket? That's the only thing I can think of as like a reason for why he wouldn't start. But I don't think that's good enough. I think he has to give him the start. He has to reward what he's done, right?
Yeah, I agree. I just think there's certain times where you just have to forget tactically what you think the optimal is, and you just have to be a bit of a human and read the room, and that's where man management comes in. And this is like, it's forced himself into a decision. Martinelli can't really argue it at the moment, and Trossard's done everything he can. I think, like you said, if you can't earn a start after the way he's impacted games, obviously we don't know how he trains midweek, but yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't start. I actually think Zinchenko has a chance of coming back into the team. I'm not 100% sure on what I'm going to do for a predicted 11, but I just think I take the point on, like, Brighton have a lot of tricky wingers, right? They've got Minter, they've got Matoma, they've got Adingra, who we'd been linked with, but Zinchenko's played against them before with similar talent, and he was a part of the reason I think we played so well against them. And where I agree, I think Timber will play those games where it's against tricky wingers. I also think there's a case to say Zinchenko will play the games that are at home outside of like a big six opponent, where we just want to keep the ball. We want to, yeah, keep the ball, play possession football the way we do. Because I think Timber is fine on the ball, but I don't think we got the same level of ball progression through passing with him there at Villa Park compared to what we do with Zinchenko. And like, that's not saying it was a wrong decision. Like, it was something that we absolutely needed for Villa Park. I just think at home, it's a game where, like you, I'm fairly confident going into this. And speaking to Brighton fans and how concerned they are about it, I think it's another one where I preview it looking like I did against Wolves, where sure, they've got more players that can hurt in isolated 1v1s than Wolves did with Hwang. But how often are Brighton actually going to be able to sustainably attack that flank? I think it will be a case of, like, this is a game where Arteta looks at Zinchenko's net positives as a way that outweighs his net negatives. And if, like I always ask you, right, like if you had a gun to your head, what would you say the lineup is right now? If you had a gun to my head, I would say 2 changes: Zinchenko in for Timber and Trossard in for Martinelli. Because I look at post-international break, Zinchenko's not starting Tottenham and Man City away, is he? So I think it's again of a kind of balancing the squad. When can you play people? Zinchenko, I think, did well against Wolves and will understand the decision to not play against Villa, but I don't think Timber was like exceptional against Villa where he's forced Zinchenko out of the team. So I think that aligned with what I'm saying about tactically, how I think the game Arteta will want to approach it and really keep the ball and progress centrally against Brighton. I think Zinchenko will come back in and Trossard will nip it on the left.
That's really fair. That's really fair, actually. I think I overlooked Zinchenko there. He will be utilized throughout the season, and it's naive to think that that's him done. And Timber's just been called up to the Dutch national team after however long.
That's great.
So I'm really happy for him, but I guess maybe it makes sense the manager lets him rest before those international games, and those international games are like the minutes he gets in his legs before those away fixtures versus Spurs and City.
Possibly, yeah, we'll see. Brighton is interesting. So I've spoken to a couple of Brighton fans this week, and like I said, they're not confident, but for what it's worth, they did actually play midweek in the EFL Cup. Still sounds so weird saying EFL, not Carabao, but their last lineup in the Premier League was against Man United, where they obviously won fairly last minute. I think it was where João Pedro nipped it. Yeah, it was literally 90
It was
plus
last seconds, yeah.
But the lineup that started that game was Steele in goal, Veltman, Van Heck, Dunk, and Hinchwood. It was a midfield double pivot of Gilmore and Milner, and out wide they had Matoma and Minter with Pedro just behind Danny Welbeck. And I've been speaking to, like I said, a couple of Brighton fans. One of them is the Planet FPL correspondent, and yeah, they're not feeling confident. They've both basically predicted the same team, but with rumours of Gilmore leaving, they said Baleba might come in. And he's someone that, I don't know if you remember him, but he did very well when he's played against us before. But they've both gone for the same team. And then tactically, this is what I find really interesting. They won 4-0 against Crawley, right? In the EFL Cup. But even that, he said they look very open in transition. Even against Crawley the other day, we struggled with teams overloading us out wide as the fullbacks is where we're weakest right now until Estupiñán is 100% match fit and Kadioglu is integrated. Saka and whoever plays on the left could have a field day. And that was echoed by the other Brighton fan that I've spoken to as well. They said in terms of tactically, they said going forward, they'd look sharp. They get the ball into Welbeck very quickly. So they're expecting when they win the ball, they'll be very direct. And like direct doesn't mean going long, just they will play through the phases very quickly, almost like 1-2 passes maximum into Welbeck rather than slow build up and stuff. They said they're very weak in midfield. They expect João Pedro to drop in and help out. Obviously, we probably all seen O'Reilly had a shocking injury on his debut, and Weaver's not in there, and he's a very good ball-playing midfielder as well. They're playing a very high line this season, and he says it's scary. He said it's worked out so far, but it could catch us out. But this is the key point. It's the first game they're going into as underdogs, which sounds crazy considering they played Man United, but they obviously played Everton away. They played Man United last week, and we know this isn't the best Man United team. So it'll be the first time they're going to a game as actual underdogs, and I think it will suit us very well. I think they will still look to play their game, but I just think we'll have too much quality for them. I think what I've heard there about the overloads being a bit of a concern for them, I'd say that's our bread and butter. I think we're so smart positionally and tactically with how we deal with overloads all over the pitch that I think we'll be pulling them around in different areas. And yeah, I'm fairly confident in this game going into it. Any thoughts on the Brighton team for you?
Yeah, so just on these guys, like I am a big fan of Mitoma, which I'm sure you know. I love João Pedro. Fair play to Welbs as well. These last couple of weeks, it hopefully keeps it up, just not against us. I really love this team. I just think that the back line isn't all that. Personally, I know Estupiñán was back in training. I think maybe. Do you think it's? I guess talking about like predictions of like, will this team against United be the team they go out with against us? Like, I don't think Estupiñán's ready to start a game, but he's like maybe 50-50. I don't know if they said anything about him in the presser, but he's the one player I'd be scared of because I remember when we did lose that title in the first season of the title challenge, it was that kind of game against Brighton where we lost 3-0 and Estupiñán scored the dagger and the third goal like right at the end.
So one of the fans does have him in the predicted lineup, to be fair.
They?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay, he's the one that scares me because he's just something about him. I really like him as a player.
Yeah,
I know he gets injured, but he is an exciting player. And I think him being there instead of like a back line with Veltman and Hinshelwood as fullbacks, that adds a lot to them as a team. I think it's like underestimated how big an impact that would have. He is so good. So for me, if he doesn't play, I'm much more confident. I think for what it's worth, this is likely to be pretty much the team that they roll out with. I can't see how the likes of Welbeck and Pedro don't play. Minte, Matoma. The front line, I just don't see changing. Maybe some stuff in the midfield or back line. But yeah, no, overall, I think this is probably the team to go with. Maybe Estupiñán comes in.
Yeah, agree. And then obviously, like I said, with Gilmore rumoured to be going, one of the fans said Weaver is a 49-51 probability of being available after being a doubt. And then the other said Baleba will come in. So we'll see. But yeah, I agree. The main point for me is I look at that back line and I just think we can have so much joy if we manipulate that properly. I think they'll catch us by surprise, though. Like when, especially if that Baleba plays, Milner, we know is like a bloody marathon runner. He'll cover every blade of grass. But what they said about winning the ball in midfield and pinging it vertically, through the lines into Pedro and Welbeck rather than getting it into the wingers, I think even more so that makes me think Zinchenko will be in there because Zinchenko, for all of his flaws, is actually very good at anticipations and interceptions. And I think if they're going to look to nick it, I think you need a very press-resistant player in the central part of the field. So yeah, I think they've got talent in their attacking quarter, but we've got talent in our defence. And we've got more than enough talent to bloody a few noses with their defence, I think.
I have a question for you on Brighton. Because I just want to say this before we talk about like score predictions and other stuff. It's actually transfer window related, but I just want to ask you, is there something deep inside you that thinks that the likes of Coleman and Sterling were smoke screens and there might be a very late swoop into Brighton to raid them for a Ferguson or an Adingra? Or is that just me? Like there is zero information that gives me that feeling. There's just something in my back of my mind something. I don't know if I'm just being delusional here, but
I have got
Ferguson's
no
no hope.
no.
Okay.
I don't think any of them will happen. To be honest, sorry to burst the bubble if you wanted
Especially
it, but
before they play us, right? I did think it was a bit optimistic. The reason I say this is because Ferguson, I know he's like been injured and stuff, but he's not like really been on the bench. Like they're just like not. He's like not being seen since the season began for them.
yeah, I don't know what his injury is. To be fair,
The thing is, I don't think it's like a proper injury. Like I think he's been in training. I'm just checking on Premier injuries in the injury table.
what does it say
Like
on
he's
that?
not even there. There are 4 injured players: Solomon, March, Gruder, Weaver, and O'Reilly. So he's not even listed as an injured player, and yet he's just not. Like he's fighting to get fully fit, but he's not injured. So like, where has he been? Why is he nowhere to be found? Like, are
So
they
just
protecting
checked.
him to sell him?
He was actually on the bench against Crawley midweek, which was interesting. He didn't come
And,
on.
and
Yeah,
he
that's
didn't come on.
interesting.
Something.
Wants
So
to
that's
keep him.
that's the thing that I'm keep that maybe it's just like pure copium, but something in my prayers, man. Like I've always said that I thought Ivan Ferguson is a bold clay. Evan Ferguson, sorry, is I said he was the Irish Mbappe, innit?
Fucking hell. I think he's very good, but I wouldn't say he's the Irish Mbappe. I'd say he's more like a Wayne Rooney than an Mbappe. But
No, I'm just taking the piss. But okay, cool. So yeah, so that's not happening, and I just thought they have so many forwards. They bought another one again yesterday.
they
It's like
did,
10
yeah.
forwards at the club. Kozia Dubry just gone out on loan
He's
to the
gone on
championship.
loan, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they are stacked there. But yeah, should go on to score predictions. So
Let's do it.
the spreadsheet's back this season. You kept it very quiet and humble. You got last week correct. You said 2-0 against Villa.
Oh shit! You know what? I remember in my brain when I was watching the game, right? I was like, I really wanted us to score a 3rd goal so I can get FPL points. And in my like ego, I was like, but I'd rather be correct about the score than FPL. So it was like
Yeah,
I was really conflicted emotions, man.
you kept that very quiet. So yeah, so far you're on 100% outcome. You've predicted 2 wins. I've predicted 1 win, and I ignored the screenshot on the right. That's actually wrong. I predicted us to draw last week against Villa. Yeah, you've predicted 5 goals scored and no goals conceded, which you're bang on the money on the conceded. We've only actually scored 4 goals though, which
Which
I've
you've
predicted.
got right,
So
yeah.
what are you going with this week? You've hinted that you're very bullish. You said a clean sheet already. I'm just wondering how many goals do you think we're going to win by with what you've said?
So my prediction is 3-0.
Okay.
But the thing is, I saw Nick Fadley's prediction, and it's made me doubt myself a bit. I think he's probably more accurate than I am. So
So
Nick
Nick has
says
gone with,
Brighton. Yeah, go for it.
he says Brighton are quite tricky anyway. I see a 3-1 win.
I
So
think
for what
that
it's
is
worth,
most realistic.
that's my prediction as well. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we kept a clean sheet and it's very dominant. I just think that Brighton front four has enough to trouble us. And let's be real, like we were fortunate to keep a clean sheet last week.
We were.
I think Brighton will have more of an attacking threat than Wolves did. So I think they will be able to create a couple of opportunities where they take advantage of it and unfortunately break our clean sheet duck. But yeah, I'm going 3-1. I think we'll have more than enough to win the game.
I'll go 3-0. The disaster will be if we're reviewing this at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning and we've somehow lost. I'll be pretty upset at how bullish I am on this scoreline at that point.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we don't need to worry about that and we can have a nice little jolly review on Sunday morning. We'll obviously both be at the game tomorrow. It's a nice 12:30 kickoff. I am hoping that the Champions League fixtures drop before I make my way to the Emirates because I'm hoping to book flights to Milan for Inter Milan away. And for anyone that hasn't heard or listened to the pod, I did a little rundown yesterday of the Champions League, a little bit on the new format and how it works and what a realistic expectation might be for us. And I actually looked at each of the teams we've been drawn against, and there's a couple surprises in there, I think, that people will be surprised about. So yeah, give that a listen, and we'll be back on Sunday morning to review the game. We'll do a transfer window review, like I said, during the international break, but hopefully let's go into that with a nice, comfortable win against Brighton. It would be nice to go into the international break 9 points, no goals conceded, even better would be great. Have you got anything that you want to add or any shout outs before we get out of here?
No, just thank you to everyone who came live. Obviously, we appreciate it. It's Lovely to see you all in the chat, and looking forward to kind of reviewing the transfer window during the international break with you, and hopefully maybe a guest as well. And yeah, we have some really big games coming on the other side of this international break. So I think tomorrow is important because we need to get those 9 points. I think you remember in the preseason season expectations, my view was that if we're top of the league after the first 5 games, that no one will catch us. That was my view. It was my bold take for the season. That kind of requires us to obviously go away to the Etihad and to Spurs and beat them both. But
I don't know. I
yeah.
think if we beat Brighton, I think we can afford for 4 points from Tottenham and City away then.
Yeah, but in that case, then the question is, I'd almost want the win at City at the Etihad just to get that finally.
I know what you mean, but like,
As much as
I think
Spurs,
Tottenham are a team we can absolutely beat. Yeah, we'll touch on that later.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah, but yeah, that was really it. It's just so my thoughts are that, like, let's just review the transfer window when it actually closed, and it's not all doom and gloom like everyone's making it out to be. It's not even the end of the window yet. We still have about 8.5 hours to go. I hope they pull something out of the hat.
Nicely done. Yeah, fingers crossed we head into the international break with a nice 3 points, no injuries, and hopefully a new signing. Like I said earlier, if you're new around here and you like this type of content, we do this every Friday. We do reviews every Sunday. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss them. And we also do ad hoc solos where we do like player profile, tactical profiling, as well as reactions to the Champions League draw, which I've done already. If you're listening on audio, please give it a 5-star review. And on that note, we will wrap up. Cheers, Nima. Up the Arsenal.
Come on, you Gunners.